All right, I think we'll get underway. Welcome everyone to the Toronto elections becoming a candidate information session in preparation for the 2022 municipal election. My name is Colin McLean and I'm the manager of the legislation candidates and election finance portfolio. And I'd like to introduce you to my team. Um, they're subject matter experts and also part of the panel tonight presenting. Project managers, Gail Baker and Christopher Hubbard, and project coordinator, Kathleen Donovan. Tonight's session is approximately 1 hour in length, and if you have any questions during the presentation, you're welcome to type them into the Q&A function as part of the webinar. We will not be having a verbal question period back and forth. All your questions can be entered, as I mentioned, into the Q&A function as part of the webinar. Your question is only visible to us, the presenters or panel members. At the end of our 30-minute presentation, we're approximately 30 minutes, we have allotted the final 30 minutes for the Q&A portion of the presentation. Our moderator this evening will be Kathleen Donovan, and she will be monitoring the chat and she'll read out the questions that will be answered. If we don't get to your question, please don't worry. You can have an opportunity to speak to us directly. You're welcome to give us a call during regular business hours at 416-395-0025, or you can email us at candidateinfo@toronto.ca. Now I'll walk you through the agenda a little bit. So our information session outline, as I mentioned, the presentation will be approximately 30 minutes. We'll start off with a bit of a background, and we'll talk about the city clerk's responsibilities with respect to delivering an election, the importance of accessible campaigns. We'll talk about the ward structure and then provide you some key dates. Then we'll get into the important stuff, I guess the main reason why most of you are here, becoming a candidate. So we'll talk to you about the who, the where, the how, and the when. And we'll also introduce a new appointment booking system that we've never used before for nominations, and we hope that everyone will take advantage of that to book their appointments. And then we'll get into the additional information and resources, including a little bit of information on third-party advertising. That will bring us to the end of our presentation, and then, as I mentioned, we'll have approximately 30 minutes available for to answer the questions that you posed in the Q&A chat function. So the city clerk's responsibilities. The city clerk is responsible for the administration of the election and must conduct the election in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act and all other related legislation, and this includes City of Toronto bylaws. The responsibilities of the clerk are not limited to, but include establishing forms and all policies and procedures, determining and approving the voting places where the ballot will be administered, notifying candidates of their legislative responsibilities. This is done through a number of channels, not the least of which are through information sessions as we're hosting right now, and communicating through our website, email, or when accessing candidate-specific systems. The city clerk is also responsible for administering the city's contribution rebate program, and a large responsibility is making sure the election is accessible for all. The clerk must ensure the election is accessible for both candidates and electors. This includes the accessibility of our voting places, both into the voting place and throughout the voting place, and the importance of providing communication through accessible channels and in accessible formats. We strongly encourage all candidates to do the same when running their campaigns. For best practices with respect to accessibility, you can review the AMCTO Candidates Guide to Accessible Elections. We'll have the link is there for you on the screen right now, and don't worry, this presentation will be posted on our website for your convenience later. Now I'm going to pass you over to Kathleen Donovan, and Kathleen will start talking to you about our ward structure. Kathleen?
Hi, everyone. So, as Colin introduced me, I'm Kathleen, and I'm the project coordinator for Toronto elections, candidate legislation, and election finance. Now, I'm going to briefly walk you through the ward structure for the 2022 municipal election for both council and Toronto's 4 school boards. In 2018, the Government of Ontario passed the Better Local Government Act, which you probably remember reduced the number of city council wards from 47 to 25. Now, this structure is unchanged for the upcoming 2022 municipal election. The 25 ward boundaries align with the current federal and provincial electoral ridings. Each school board has also reshaped their wards to align with the 25 ward structure, although in some cases, which will become clear as we walk through the maps, one school board ward may encompass 2 or more council wards. So be sure to check maps when you're deciding where you want to run. To see how school boards correspond with council wards, you can check out the 2022 school board reference chart, which is linked here. And again, make sure you triple check the maps to ensure you're running in the correct ward. If you wish to run for a school board trustee, you must live in the jurisdiction of that school board. You do not, however, have to live within the specific ward you want to run in. For the Toronto District School Board, as seen here, the area of jurisdiction is the City of Toronto boundaries. You can also see that one school board ward may encompass 2 or more council wards. So again, be sure to check your maps. Like for the TDSB, the jurisdiction for the Toronto Catholic District School Board is the City of Toronto boundaries. So again, you can see that the wards may encompass 2 or more council wards. So check your maps, check the reference chart, and make sure you're running in the correct ward. Now, this is where it gets a bit different. So Conseil Scolaire Vieux-Monde boundaries are beyond the City of Toronto boundaries. If you want to run in a ward that is within the City of Toronto boundaries, you must file your nomination paper at City Hall, even if you live outside of the city's boundaries. The requirement of living within the school board jurisdiction, however, remains the same. Similarly, Conseil Scolaire Catholique Monavinaire boundaries are beyond the City of Toronto boundaries. If you want to run in a ward that is within the City of Toronto boundaries, you must file at City Hall, and your address must be within the school board jurisdiction. I'm now going to draw your attention to some key dates which are relevant to you if you choose to become a candidate. The opening of nomination occurs on May 2nd, 2022, and runs until 2 p.m. on August 19th. Starting on September 1st, certified candidates will begin to receive the voters list, a list of voting places, ward maps, and then starting on September 23rd, candidates will receive their final spending and self-contribution limits. Now, advance vote goes from October 7th to October 14th, and election day is, of course, on October 24th. For a more comprehensive list of dates, we encourage you to check the city's website, because this will also include detailed dates to do with financial filings. I'm now going to pass the presentation over to my colleague Gail, who will walk you through the meat and potatoes of how to become a candidate.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that you cannot raise or spend any money on your campaign until your nomination has been filed with Toronto Elections. People who wish to run for office must meet the qualifications that's listed on this slide. For all offices, a person, when they file the nomination paper, must be at least 18 years old, a Canadian citizen, be able to vote for the office in which you plan to run. So, for example, if someone wants to run for Toronto District School Board trustee, you must be able to vote for that school board and not be disqualified from holding office. And an example of this is if you didn't file like your required financial statements in the last election or by-election. If you plan to run for mayor or councillor, you must either reside in the City of Toronto or you or your spouse owns or leases property in the city. If you lease a property, it must be in your personal name. For people who wish to run for school board trustee, you must live in the area's jurisdiction. This means if you want to run for Toronto District School Board or Toronto Catholic District School Board, you must live in the City of Toronto. For those two French school boards, as Kathleen mentioned, you can live outside of Toronto, as those school boards areas of jurisdiction are well beyond the city boundaries. If you are a City of Toronto employee and want to run for mayor or councillor, you must be on an unpaid leave of absence when you file your nomination. The same applies to school board trustees. If you're employed, even as a supply teacher, for any of the school boards, then you must be on an unpaid leave of absence. Now that you know that you're qualified, starting May 2nd, you can file the appropriate paperwork with Toronto Elections. All potential candidates will need the nomination paper, your current ID that shows your name, signature, and qualifying address within the City of Toronto, and the nomination filing fee, which is $200 for mayoralty candidates and $100 for councillor and trustee candidates. The fee can be paid by cash, debit or credit card, or certified check or money order made payable to the Treasurer, City of Toronto. Those who wish to run for mayor or councillor must also provide at least 25 endorsement of nominations, which I'll go into in a moment. Once your nomination has been accepted, you are now a candidate running in the 2022 election, and you'll receive an email from candidateinfo@toronto.ca. And that email has your preliminary spending limit, a letter you can use to open your bank account, procedures for the vote counting equipment and mail-in voting, and you'll also receive your user ID for My Campaign, which is a candidate portal that pertains to the office in which you are running it. So as I mentioned, those running for mayor and councillor must obtain at least 25 endorsement of nominations. Only eligible electors within the City of Toronto can endorse you, and you must have original signatures on the endorsement form. The elector can endorse multiple candidates. They're not limited to just one. All forms are available on the city's website at toronto.ca/elections. And school board trustees, you don't have to worry about the endorsements because you're not required to do them. Please make sure all your endorsements are complete, as we will be checking them when you come in to file. If you do not have 25 valid endorsements, we cannot accept your nomination. We do recommend that you provide us with more than 25. So now you've filed your nomination and you've now decided that you no longer wish to run for office. You have up until 2 p.m. August the 19th to withdraw from office. All withdrawals must be done in person at our Toronto Elections office. For those who want to change ward or offices, again, you have until 2 p.m. on August the 19th to do so. You must withdraw from the old office and file a new nomination for the new office and pay the appropriate nomination filing fee. Now, if you're just changing wards, so for example, you filed as Councillor Ward 1 and you want to change to Councillor Ward 2, you're not required to file any additional endorsement of nominations, as the ones you filed for the first office is transferred over to the new office. However, if you want to switch from trustee to mayor or councillor, then you have to come in with those 25 valid endorsement of nominations. For those who have filed for more than one office, you must remember that each campaign is separate and contributions and expenses cannot be transferred from one campaign to the other. You are also required to submit a financial statement for each campaign, even if you did not raise or spend any money on the withdrawn office. I'm now going to hand it over to Christopher.
Thanks, Gail. So Gail talked about how to file your nomination. So I'm going to go over where to actually do that. So all in-person candidate services will only be provided at our Toronto Elections office at City Hall. So those of you who've run before, maybe in 2018, please be aware that this office is actually in a different location than it was before. So we're still on the main floor of City Hall, but instead of being at the very back of City Hall, we used to be at the kind of tucked away in the north end. We're now on the west side of the main rotunda. So when you walk into City Hall from Nathan Phillips Square, kind of just on the west side, right around where the security checkpoint is, you will our office will be there, and we'll have signage. I will note that the city hall now requires you to go through a metal detector security check before you can essentially go anywhere. So you'll have to go through that checkpoint, and then kind of it's a little awkward. You'll have to kind of go through it and then loop back around to us. But we'll help you out. The security will probably direct you. We'll make sure you get where you need to go. And also for those of you who've run before, we will not be providing any candidate services at our 89 Northline office. So that's our office that's in the East York location. We will not be providing any candidate services there. So if you show up there, you will be redirected to City Hall. So that's the where. Now I'm going to talk about the when. So nominations, as we've mentioned a few times, they open up on Monday, May 2nd, and they close on August 19th. So our office hours and when we accept nominations are Monday to Friday between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., excluding holidays. And then I'll mention that on August 19th, which is the last day of the nomination period, nominations are only accepted between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's just, those times are set out in the legislation in the Municipal Elections Act. So that's why it's a little bit different than all the other hours. But basically, between 9 and 2 that day is when nominations will be accepted. I will note that in terms of that 2 p.m. deadline to file a nomination, it functions how our voting locations function. If you are in line by that 2 p.m. deadline, you will be served. Even if it's past 2 o'clock at that point, but you just have to make sure that you're there and ready to go before 2 p.m. And that way you'll be safe. Now I'm going to talk about a big change to our nomination process this year, which is the appointment booking process. So in order to make the entire nomination process a little more efficient, to minimize crowding, and just to generally make things a little less wild at the very beginning and very end of our nomination period, which are typically when the bulk of people file their nominations, we're implementing a brand new appointment booking system for receiving candidate services, whether that's filing a nomination or even just coming in if you want to ask some questions. Now, the big question that some of you might be thinking right now is, what if I show up without an appointment? And the general answer is that we will try our best to serve you, but we can't guarantee it, at least without a wait. So the benefit of booking that appointment is that you show up just a minute or two before your appointment and you receive service. You don't really have to wait around for any significant amount of time. Now, I will also say that on most days throughout the 3.5 month nomination period, it'll be likely that you can pretty easily find even same day appointments and receive service. This is really going to have the biggest impact on like the first day or two of the nomination period, because that's usually when we have like a bunch of people kind of converging at once trying to file their nomination papers. So what I would say, if you're able to, if you're willing to, consider waiting till the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to come in and file your nomination paper. There'll likely be a lot of nomination or appointment times available after that first day or two, so you won't need to wait around or risk not getting service if you don't have an appointment. You also might feel a little bit less pressure if there's less people behind you waiting to remember kind of what questions you might want to ask us or things like that as you're filing your nomination. So we'll just do like a little quick thing to show you where to find the booking system and just quickly how to book a thing. So I think I'm just going to pull up a web browser here. So this is the main Toronto elections page. This is accessed at toronto.ca/elections. So if you go here and you just scroll down a little bit and you'll see this little heading that says candidate and third-party advertisers. So you click that. And then you get to this section, and right at the top, there's this thing that has book an appointment. You click that button. It takes you to our appointment booking system. And right off the bat, it has some information that about kind of booking your thing. So you click, you scroll down a little bit and ask what you want to book. So there's candidate nominations, third-party advertiser registrations, and just general questions. So we clicked here as a sample on candidate nominations. It just reminds you kind of what Gail talked about earlier, the things that you will need for filing a candidate nomination. Once you're kind of reviewed that, you click on the button at the bottom, and then this will take you to where you actually book your appointment. You can choose the dates, the times. Once you choose the time, it will basically ask you for your contact information. And I believe it sends you an email confirmation, an email verification where you just have to verify it to finish kind of the appointment booking process. Once you're booked, you'll get a confirmation. When it gets close to your appointment date, you should get a reminder email reminding you. And again, kind of talking about some of the things we talked about today, what the things you'll need to bring, make sure you bring certain forms and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much it. So again, that appointment booking system is live now. And so and basically candidates should be using that to file their nomination and really make the process smooth and nice for everyone. So I'm going to talk now, kind of getting to the final section of our presentation, is on some additional information and resources. So the first thing that I want to talk about quickly is my campaign and the electronic financial filing system. So this is something that we'll talk about more at a future information session, and I will mention those future information sessions in a minute. But I just want to go over it quickly just to make sure you're aware. So as a candidate, you will be given access to 2 web applications. One is called My Campaign, and the other is called the Electronic Financial Filing System, or EFFS for short. So My Campaign is a resource that you can log into to receive information and resources specific to your campaign, so specific to the office that you filed for. This would include spending limits, contribution limits that apply to yourself and your spouse combined. Once it's been certified, the scanned copy of your nomination paper. This will also be, so right now, or not right now, but once the nomination period opens, we will have a list of candidates. It's just a very bare bones list of the people who filed their nomination. So it will just have your name, the office that you filed for, and the date you filed. But you can actually add some contact info, like say a phone number, a website, that kind of thing. So you would be able to submit that contact information for public display through My Campaign. We just get a notification, we make sure that it's okay, we clean up the URLs, and that would go online. So that would be done through My Campaign. At September, once they become available, you'll be able to download detailed ward maps for your ward with the voting locations on them. In October, you can access a sample ballot for your office. And so essentially My Campaign is it's a tool. You'll get access to it. Basically, you'll start getting the information when you file your nomination, and it will be very useful for you throughout the entire campaign period. And then the Electronic Financial Filing System, or EFFS, is another online application that will assist you with your financial filing requirements after the election. And if you're participating in the rebate program, it'll actually be where you go to input the contribution data that you receive and generate the kind of required receipt applications that you would need to send to your contributors so that they can claim the rebate in the election. So more information about these things will be provided to you when you file your nomination. So I know this is a candidate information session, but I do want to just briefly talk about third-party advertising. So third-party advertising is any paid advertisement in any media, whether it's print, broadcast, social media, that promotes or opposes a candidate in the 2022 municipal election. So the third-party advertising framework was first introduced in 2018 to make it more transparent when third parties were spending money to influence the election, and to really set limits and parameters around the amount of money that could be spent on these types of advertisements. So the legislation requires any person, corporation, or trade union that intends to spend money during the election period, and the election period begins on May 2nd, the first day of nominations, and goes all the way to election day. So any person, corporation, or trade union that intends to spend money on promoting or opposing a candidate has to register as a third-party advertiser with the city clerk. So the registration begins on May 2nd, the same day that candidate nominations open. But unlike candidate nominations, third-party registration goes all the way until October 21st, which is the Friday before Election Day. So individuals, corporations, and trade unions only need to register as a third-party advertiser if money is being spent. So if someone's just making posts on Twitter, they're not paying to promote those tweets or anything like that, that would not require registration as a third-party advertiser. Again, the key aspect is money being spent to promote or oppose a candidate. And the important thing that you should know as a candidate is that third-party advertising is separate from any candidate's campaign, and it must be done independently from a candidate. So candidates cannot direct or be affiliated with a third-party advertiser in the election. So we have a lot more information on third-party advertisers on our website, so feel free to go there if you want to find out a little bit more. I'll just quickly highlight a few resources that will be useful for you as a candidate. So the first, is I've mentioned many times, is our website, so toronto.ca/elections. We updated it a few weeks ago. There's a lot of information pertaining to becoming a candidate, certainly also for voters, everyone else, but there's definitely a lot of detailed information on becoming a candidate, managing your campaign, your financial filing requirements. That's all there, so definitely take a look. I really want to highlight this candidates guide. So the province of Ontario, who sets out the legislation that for all municipal elections in Ontario, they put out a candidates guide every election that really takes the legislation, the Municipal Elections Act, all the rules and requirements for candidates in the legislation, and puts it into a really clear kind of plain language document that you can read through and really get a strong sense of what you should know as a candidate running in the election. So it's linked to here. It's linked to on our website. It's a very useful document for you, for candidates to review. Kathleen mentioned them earlier. The key dates for 2022 are available on our website. And then, of course, the legislation itself. So all municipal elections in Ontario are governed by the Municipal Elections Act, and that's available online for you to read through if you so desire. So I briefly mentioned this earlier. We are doing additional candidate information sessions. You can see those two dates there, July 14th and August 24th. Both of those campaign sessions are identical. They're just on two different dates, but they're going to cover the exact same things. And it's really about manage a campaign. So obviously this is pre-nomination period. It's about becoming a candidate, the things you need to know to register. And these information sessions taking place in the summer are really focused, they're aimed at people who filed as candidates, who now some tips, some information on managing your campaign, the things you should know as a registered candidate or a filed candidate. And so right now we have the dates, some details are still to be determined, but we will make that information available on our website. We'll broadcast it out on social media, all of that stuff. So just keep your eyes peeled for more information about those information sessions. And then lastly, before we get into the question and answers, is just some contact information. So Colin mentioned this earlier, but if you want to get in touch with us, we have an email address and a phone number that are exclusive, like devoted to candidates and candidate related questions. So the email address is candidateinfo@toronto.ca. And the phone number is that 416-395-0025. So these, both the email address and the phone number are monitored by the people you actually see on this call right now, or on this WebEx session, I should say. And also we'll have some additional election assistants who will be helping us out. But yeah, we're the people who deal with the candidate stuff specifically. So you'll get directed. You'll basically be talking to us, and so you can basically avoid having to go through the process. If you email the general elections line of getting it forwarded to us, we'll be the people helping you out. And then I've put we've put the contact information for the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing here. So the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is the provincial ministry that basically sets the legislation that governs municipal elections in Ontario, so the Municipal Elections Act. So if you have questions, concerns with the legislation itself as it exists, this is the contact information to get in touch with them.